Okay, shall we start? Any questions? Any suggestions? Okay, let's see what we have for today. Um, and let's see if we can finish a little bit earlier. Maybe we can. Um, so today I'm gonna show you three things: user interfaces, PowerShell as a user interface, and we'll talk about some strategies that you might implement uh, for better time management, basically. So this is the agenda command line. Let me check. Do you see the slides? Yeah. So the command line interface, uh, we will see many people. I know I myself was always confused and tried to compare. Now, which one is better? I have my graphical user interface with either uh, Windows or Mac or Linux. Linux flavors, basically, some flavors come with uh, Ubuntu, for example, has a very good graphical interface. So it's fine when I'm using it. It's fine, but then uh, sometimes I feel like no, it's not enough. I can do things using command line uh, like terminal in Linux or use or Mac or command line CMD or PowerShell on Windows. Now, really, which one should I use, and what is the benefit of each of these? We will try to see some of the differences between command line interfaces and graphical user interfaces, CLI and GUI. Um, and we'll talk about the human machine interface from a little bit historic perspective, but very quickly we will reach to the present moment. We will not get stuck in history. And PowerShell as a very powerful cross-platform tool these days. So you can use PowerShell on Windows, on Linux, and on Mac. It's cross-platform, and it's a powerful tool to use. We will see some commands. Basically, your activity will be majorly depending on the PowerShell commands that you will run. So I will show some stuff, but you will go more deep into this when you start doing your activity, this week's activity, and time management. Um, as here, okay, time management. We start with time management first uh, because you probably see now this is becoming a problem, especially when you reach toward the end of semester. You run out of time all the time. You run out of time. But what is the problem with that? Let's see some tricks, some things, and also I will refer you to a very, very interesting YouTube video about it's a TED talk on procrastination. Wow, it's an amazing video. You should watch it. I will show you, and we might be able to watch like 30 seconds or 1 minute of that. So what is the problem? Can we manage time? Probably that's a. I probably think that's not a correct way of using this. You cannot manage time. You can manage yourself, you can manage your behavior, you can manage your choices, and you can manage your attention. um, Time is just flying all the time for all of us that are busy with so many stuff. So what is the appropriate way of doing that, managing our own choices, our own activities, our own behaviors? This is basically what we want to shortly discuss today. Um, the activities based on this slide actually can be categorized into two different ways of doing. We have in programming, we have stacks and we have queues. Um, a stack is a storage place that you take out the thing that was last that last came in. So you put the stuff on top of each other. So when you put the stuff on top of each other, you don't have access. You only have access. Let me put it this way: you only have access to the topmost thing, right? The thing that has been put, the last thing that has been put there. So this is a stack. Stacks are very useful in programming, even when now these days you're coding C, right? When you write a function, every time a function is called, everything is pushed to a stack, and you should think about it. Now you can only have access to the last thing that was pushed there. Or in object-oriented programming, for example, when you are your an object is being destructed, for instance, because the objects are pushed in the stack, the object that has been created, the last object that has been created gets destructed first, for instance. So this is a very useful concept, knowing that what a stack is. A stack is a storage that you can, there is one opening, you can put things there and you can take out things again from the same opening. So the only access that you have is to the last thing that you put there. Now imagine in real life, we receive emails, for example. Do you even go back and check your email that you received 1 week ago? You don't. If you answer your email right away, you receive it, you answer it, you're good. If after 1 day you want to reply to that, it becomes more difficult. More difficult. It gets in the stack, and after a week, you don't even have access, or you don't even remember that you received such an email. So this type of things, this type of activities in life are kind of emergency things, and they require emergency response from you, and you can think of them as a stack. If these emergency things are not taken care of, they will never ever be taken care of. So if an emergency comes up, you have to immediately reply to that. Emails or to-do lists, that daily things that you do, and if you don't do, they will not do that. These are things that are in the stack form. Activities, for example, or when the quiz comes up, in that 24-hour window. You have to do it then. If you miss, you will miss that. Things like this are stack-like. But we have other things that are basically, we put in our calendar, and we put them in order to do. Uh, these are, for example, you plan to do something and there are 10 steps to do that. So you put each of those steps in your calendar, and you just do them. You do the first one that you put in the calendar. right? It's exactly the opposite of stack. You do the first thing that comes up in your calendar. It's for this week, it's for next week, right? So first come first served is the model for this. These are the things very good for your strategic planning. So if you're planning for doing something in these steps, then this is the time you put them in a queue, and in the queue, you do each of them, and when the time for that comes up. This model, you have to find, you have to categorize things. You have to categorize your to-do list uh, into these two categories. See which one to do. You set a time for that. Say in like next week, this time I will be doing this, or the things that are emergency and you should reply. I have realized, based on my experience, I have realized doing things in this manner uh, help much more to do time management. You realize when you put something in your calendar, when the time comes, hmm, maybe you do that or maybe you don't. But actually, if you do that, this is a good way of doing things. But usually you see when things come up, try to respond to that, respond to that. If there is, if you are not in this category, if you're not busy doing your important step of a project, then you just try to get rid of those emergencies, all the emergencies. Just reply and clear from your mind, and let your mind focus on the project things, project steps that you're doing. So have this model, think about these two models, and use them if you think they are useful. Uh, and now for the attention management, we during the day we get distracted by so many things. Now I will ask you to reply to this poll, uh, or to just I don't know if you can write or you can speak. Tell me, what are the most distracting things for you during the day? For me, is news. I check news a lot, and I like recently I had to. Something wrong with the internet connection, but anyways, we are back. We are back now. Okay. Uh, Thank you. Okay, so one of the techniques that you can use is to do the worst thing that you hate to do. I was going to publish a poll and ask for the distractions. A distraction came up for me, and that was the internet connection. But for uh, for me personally, it's the news. I check the news from time to time during the day, and that's the distraction. That's what I'm trying to avoid. Um, uh, for the one of the techniques that you can use is uh, do the most annoying thing that you want to do that day early in the morning. Do it, put it the first priority. So this sentence means that says eat the frog in the morning. It means if you do that most difficult thing in the morning, for the first thing to do is that most difficult and annoying thing, then there is nothing else that during the day can be annoying, and life will be good after that. Uh, Procrastination, we have, this is a nice video. Procrastination, I guess to some extent we all suffer from procrastination, and that's when you say, all right, I still have time. I know I have to do this, but I still have time, so I can do this later. Let's do it later. Let's do it later, and that later sometimes never comes. There is a very, very, very interesting YouTube video. Just by clicking on this, uh, you will be redirected to that YouTube video. Mm, I really think you should watch this. Uh, this is the one. This is the one. This guy talking about his own personal experience. Still not having written a word, and so I did the only thing I could. I wrote 90. Yeah, guys, go watch this after the lectures. Go watch this. This is an amazing uh, YouTube video about procrastination. I think it has more than 20 million views. Um, Very good. So, where to begin? This is another problem. Sometimes we think uh, we don't have, now we are not in a situation that we can start that work or that thing that we want to do. So start anywhere, wherever you are. Just it's you feel that when that starting something energy, you feel that energy, you start no matter where you are. Otherwise, that energy will soon be gone and you will not be doing anything. So, no matter where you are, you just start what you feel when you feel that energy and what you feel you should be doing at that time. No matter what, sometimes your brain is tired. You don't really want to focus on some study related thing, but still do something. If you want to watch a YouTube video, go watch a YouTube video, call a friend, talk to a friend, whatever that you like. These are small good things that you can do for time management. These are not wasting time. These are the necessary things. Sometimes from time to time you need to do. So do it anywhere and do whatever you like at the moment that you don't feel like doing work or study or things like that. And another way of managing the deadline. This is basically for managing deadlines. Um, I myself do this. You put the deadlines in your calendar 1 day or 2 days before the real deadline, and sometimes you really forget that the real deadline is after 1 or 2 days, uh, that date that you have in your calendar. So it has benefits. If something happens, something bad happens, uh, it's fine. You still have 1 or 2 more days uh, for that deadline. And if nothing happens, you do your job earlier, you finish it earlier. Okay, it doesn't bother to have 1 or 2 days relaxed before a deadline. Actually, that's a wonderful thing to do. If you can relax, or do something else, and you know that you've done your job. The deadline will be okay. You've or also submitted things earlier. That is kind of feel you feel the good thing about yourself, like you can do things, and that's an asset. That's an asset. So try this one. It works. I personally do this for some of my deadlines. And rest. It's interesting to hear that a good sleep at night, or resting enough, makes you increases your efficiency basically. So if you are cutting on your sleep an hour a night, and you want to compensate for that in the weekend, that's not going to work. That's really adversely affects your the way that your brain works. So this is one of the suggestions: sleep enough. Whenever you're tired, just go to bed. And this also personally works fine for me. Enough sleep, enough rest really makes you do things in a shorter time and with better quality. So if a machine stops, sleeps, that's a problem. But if a human stops and sleeps, it's not a problem. After each enough sleep comes innovation, comes motivation, comes the energy to do things better, higher quality, and in shorter time. Um, so this is the second part of the activity. Actually, the first part is about PowerShell that we will talk, and the second part is today's activity. What choices will you make with your time? There are three parts. You will mention the uh, choices that you make, and how and why you made those choices, and how you're going to do them. Okay, now we want to enter the realm of user interfaces. Um Now, time management is a. We just wanted to um, talk about it as a starting point. You start thinking about managing your uh, behavior, managing your activities, managing your choices, and things like that. Any questions so far? Okay, if not, let's move to user interface. User interfaces. Which one do you think a better user interface? Uh, you need to reply to this. Right or left? Which one is a better interface? Right or left? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Answer. Go ahead. Go ahead. When you answer, you have to justify your answer as well. Okay. Vitali, Victor, Simrat, Kushi, you didn't answer. Shao, you said so. Now, right is six people voted for right. Two people only voted for left. Um, Shao, you said right. Why do you think right is a better interface? Okay. So does it? Uh, but still, for you personally, which one of them is better to use? Like, which one you feel more comfortable and you feel uh more okay to use? Right or left? You said right, uh, which is totally fine. Somebody else said left. Let me see who said left. Uh, Himanshi, you said left. Oh, you don't have a mic. Let me publish this. Who said left? Kefi, you said left. Why do you think left is a better interface? Kefi, it's just a preference. Actually, I love that answer. Um, Himanshi, you raise your hand. Um, I guess this is just a matter of preference, really. In this case, in this specific case, um, both. Himanshi, you raise your hand. Do you want to say something? It's. I see. You wrote it because telephones can be used more widely, which is more comfortable, I guess. Very good answer again. So, from these answers, I guess there is no correct answer. There is no better interface. It all depends on uh, you and me as users. Some of you like nobody said in the poll. It was not like everybody said right or everybody said left. We had people that some people thought right is fine for them, some people thought left is better for them, which is totally fine. And it shows in some cases, or maybe in all cases, you have to look at your customer's preference, customer's point of view, and customer's uh, past experience to design a user interface that they want. Most of the time, there is no correct answer. There are some rules, of course, there are some rules that we will reach to when it comes to user interface design, but there is no correct answer. And it all depends on the preference and point of view and past experience of your customers and the person that you are designing this user interface for. That's why when it comes to operating system user interfaces or things that billions of people use, designing a user interface becomes really, 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 really difficult and complicated, and you can get well paid for designing an interface that millions of people like and use. So this is kind of an art, but 80% of this is based on the data that you collect from the users. It's called user experience that we will shortly see in these lectures. Thank you so much for this, Paul, and answering these questions. Um, for the operating systems that we all, uh, as software engineers, as programmers, we all communicate. One option that these days a growing number of people are using is command line interface. In command line interface, uh, you have the power of God. Why? Because you're directly interacting with the interpreter of that operating system. So basically, what you write gets line by line gets interpreted and gets executed. So it gives you a lot of power. But the problem with that is um, you have to memorize everything, right? Now, it doesn't give me any clue. And whatever I want to do, I have to be an experienced user. I have to be a person with a good memory, or at least muscle memory, so that I can use this interface. Um, but by default is the initial and the default user interface of all of the operating systems. Basically, they have a core, an IO interface core, and that IO interface core takes care of inputs and outputs, and that by default comes in the form of a command line. So there is the set of rules. If you enter this keyword and then enter this and then enter this, I will do this. This is basically a table of actions, a huge table of actions that is stored in this somewhere in the files of this operating system. And when you are using any commands from that table, the operating system knows what it should exactly do. uh, so it gives you, it not only accepts commands from you, but also it shows you the outputs, right? Shows prompts, um outputs that you're looking for. Even you can view a file. You can open a text file. The text will be shown there, things like that. uh, but it is very rudimentary, very basic, and it doesn't have gra- graphic properties at all, and everything is just sending commands and receiving commands. By default, every operating system has this command line interface. Uh, just a joke for those who don't know what RD means. It's remove. So one of the dangerous things you can do is to remove files, and that's by putting RD or R to remove files. For example, this is an interface of an online web service from. This is what you see is an interface for a for this is the object storage from Amazon. Amazon Simple Storage Service, Amazon S3. If you type Amazon S3, this is a storage area just like OneDrive, and you can store your stuff, and the interface comes um, in the form of a command line interface. You can. It's very powerful, by the way. You can do batch mode. You can send multiple files at the same time, and it's good to use this. So in real, just to show you that these things are commercially available and usually are meant to be used by people like me and you, not customers outside of the field of computer programming or computer science typically. um, and then we have textual user interfaces. These days, uh, the other day I was trying to adjust brightness of my monitor on my LCD monitor, and I realized that this menu that it is suggesting it's textual interface. So in textual interface, it's one level in terms of user friendliness. It is one level above the command line interface. Now, at least you see the options. You can see the options in the command line. Unless you get help on a specific command, you won't see anything. You won't see any possibilities that is being offered to you by that interface in command line interface. But it's not the case here. uh, it's a little bit of graphics added to the text, and this makes this textual interface um, or consoles a little bit more user friendly than command line interfaces. You can see this in computer BIOS. When you go to computer BIOS, you want to set something very preliminary stuff. You want to set a password, for instance, for login. You want to change the device that the operating system is wants to be boot from, things like that. Or you monitor your CPU temperature usage, stuff like that. Some old way of doing that. Of course, there are softwares for that, but old days you had to go to BIOS, and BIOS had this kind of interface. It's just text, but you can go up and down in these menus and select some of them, and some of them are support connection of mouse, so you can use mouse to hover and move the pointer and select some of these, but mostly are keyboard. You have to use keyboards up and down, right and left, OK, save, exit, things like that. And they tell you what key is for what. Like F1 here is for help. If you press F1, it will show help. And here, for if you press F, the file menu will drop down. E, S, things like that. So a little bit of information is embedded in these. And after this kind of an example of textual, this is kind of textual user interface you see on this image. This is a this is a funny story about actually in Honolulu, uh, because the user was using this interface, which is really messed up. There was once a missile alert. So they the user actually launched this missile alert, and then they had to apologize for that and say that this was just a test, but a real missile alert went on, because this is a snapshot of the user interface that the operator of the system had in front of him or her. This Now, if you look at this, uh, it has all the natural disasters and man-made disasters, uh, warnings and things, in just a scrambled text. You don't know where to look for what and to find what. This is a this is a really the worst way of designing this interface that they designed there in Honolulu. Now, if you look at these alarms, or these categories, there's no even a category. So these are nuclear bomb nuclear bomb alerts, and then these are just amber alerts, like those yellow light alerts that are just okay, be cautious, or something is there is a, like, I don't know, tornado or something. And then weather alerts also here, and very messed up interface. So this is one of those examples that you show to people and say, okay, now you see this, never design anything like this. At least put some category and make things more organized. Uh, and that leads us to take a brief look at graphical user interfaces. Personally, I like graphical user interfaces. They come handy for a lot of applications. Listen, as programmers, we are not supposed to write. We are not supposed to build applications for a person who is a programmer also. We write programs, we build applications for the dumbest and the fullest people that you can think of. They don't even know what's going on, and they yet want to be able to work with your app. So this is one of the reasons graphical user interfaces emerged in 1970s, first at Xerox, in a research center park. It's called Polk. It's still they're still doing some research on AIs and some high tech stuff there. So this on the top left you see was Xerox first graphical user interface. You can still see similar user interface on top of printers. Many printers have this kind of user interface, and then Steve Jobs and Bill Gates saw this and they wanted to purchase this because they realized what an amazing tool they can build from this. And Bill Gates built Windows 95. I think this was the first version of Windows, all inspired and basically used. They purchased this from Xerox for $1 million at that time, and they built their Windows based upon that. And this is one of the early age interfaces of Mac, right? So this was the GUI. So now looking back, we laugh at these user interfaces, but at that time they were revolutions. Because why? Why was this graphical user interface a revolution? Because it simply brought computers to people that didn't know computer. They were not computer experts. You have to be an expert to use a command line interface, but you don't need to be expert. You don't actually need to even you don't even need to be able to read. You can just look at the icon and guess what it does, and it can be enough for you to do your job. So this was that the GUI was the revolution at that time because it brought computer, it became personal computer. One of the reasons that computer became personal computer was the GUI, the graphical user interface design. And now everybody um, could operate these systems. So overall, if we want to discuss command line interface and graphical user interface, now you have a very good idea on which one to use. If you are an expert and you want to be really efficient working with operating systems, you want to do multiple tasks at the time, and you want to fulfill a lot of operations with just one command, uh, command line interfaces for you. You have to memorize these commands. You have to work to. It requires really like you have to educate yourself on this, and then use command line interface. But after that, the world becomes the best place to live. Like if you learn how to use command line interfaces, they're amazing. Um, and on the other hand, we have graphical user interfaces. They are of obviously completely user friendly, and no training is needed. Uh, you can just in a click you can use them, but they are not as efficient as CLI, command line interfaces. Um, oh, okay, I guess we discussed this. Um, so from these days, from uh, command line interface that doesn't really require any graphical design. It just requires the design of commands and that table that we talked about, with which command you want to be able to do what, and all the power goes to these commands that are designed uh, for command line interfaces. But as it comes to textual user interfaces and graphical user interfaces, in these days, user experience, which means now I'm not just designing this user interface so that you can use it easily, but you tell me, Mr. and Mrs. User, you tell me your idea. How would you like me to put this button? Do you want me to put it on the top, on the right, on the left? Colors? What capabilities do you want this user interface to have? And oh, it's a whole world for itself. And UX is one of the sections that in the future, especially if you are also interested in graphical design and stuff like that, this is where you can start a work. User experience, and this is uh, you can be a rich person with this. Um, some some things that we should keep in mind. Are we good so far? Let me see. Let me see first. Is there any question? Any question? We will soon have a short break. Okay, good. Um, so for the user interfaces, people might input garbage information. And simply, if I want to summarize these 2, 3 slides, simply you are responsible to detect that garbage and help the user to know what mistake they made and help them correct their data and input the correct data that your application wants. These are called foolproof. Sorry, here foolproof interfaces. There is this funny website. It's idiotproofwebsite.com. So it just has um, this button here. When you click on this, uh, well, it fools you, and you click on this, and after that, it just says "good job." It's funny because many times we do this, and if you give the interface to somebody without knowing the logic, they start just clicking on those buttons to randomly figure out what they are doing. You are responsible for this kind of behavior as a designer. So this is what we want to say here. You cannot fix the user. The user is user. For the we don't have any control over user. Zero control over user. What we can do is to make make the data acquisition from the user meaningful, is all those steps that we should consider for all the wrongdoings and for wrong inputs that the user will definitely input. And you should see the problem from the point of view of your customer, your user that wants to use this uh, uh, GUI or interface or whatever it is. Um, they don't know anything about the background code. They don't know how it works. They don't know which button does what. They have no idea, and they can. You should literally expect the user to do anything that they want, and your program should be able to deal with all those wrongdoings of the user, and there is no way to change that unless you put yourself in the shoes of your user and then see what they see and design your interface based on that. So some examples, that the answer might vary depending on the point of view. Now the question is, how many fence posts uh, we need to make a 20-meter fence like this? The answer is 10. Obviously, if you're thinking math problem, probably you and I would reply to this 10. But 11, if somebody thinks about this to be visually okay as well. So depending on your customer's point of view, you should design this because the answers might vary. Now the same question, the same 20-meter, and now we want to build this around the hole of 6-meter hole. Now you need only 10, and there's only one answer for that. So by all these examples, we want to say, when designing something, don't consider yourself to be the user. Consider somebody who doesn't know anything and who comes from a completely different perspective and wants to use your interface. What would you do for that person? That's a big question. And if for some applications that are out there, if you come up with a better user interface, it can translate sometimes to thousands of dollars for you. So be careful with that and try to practice that. One problem with some of these prompts is that it doesn't give a detailed information about what will happen. Now, you've seen that. Like, are you sure you want to delete this? If you delete this, it will not be, you cannot retrieve this file or blah, 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 blah. Sometimes there is a lacking information. We don't really know what we will lose. And unless I see a list of what I am missing, I cannot click on OK or cancel. Mostly if you're cautious, you say cancel. Okay, cancel. Uh, this action will be canceled. Or sometimes if you're careless or you don't care or things are not that important, you just play okay. But it's a good practice as a programmer to give a clue, to give more details for the users when you want their action, when you want them to decide what action to take. You need to give as much detail as possible to help them make the best choice. Or like, we want to delete these things. Again, yes or no. Sometimes myself, sometimes don't go see things. If I feel like I might lose some data, I simply say no. Then I go back where I was. So these messages, the message of this slide is to not just give general error messages. Bad command. What was that command? Or input contains invalid character. So how am I supposed to know which of the characters that I entered is invalid? Please tell me what is invalid so that I can go and correct it. Input value out of range. Okay, how am I supposed to know the range? So tell me the range, and many more examples like this. Or you have seen in some websites, they um you're filling the form, you fill out the form, you put uh, your phone number there, or put your postal code there, and click submit, and suddenly you see that there is error message. That field gets read and says incorrect. Okay, I know my phone number is correct, but the problem is with their website, with the format that I have entered in. Why would the user need to format the input? You have to let people to enter the typical format, like a phone number format is consecutive numbers. Okay, let them format, and you as a programmer are responsible um, to format the unformatted data. These are the things that we should really know about user interfaces. Um, okay, now we reach to PowerShell. Again, I guess we can have a 5 minute break, or maybe 10-minute break. Let's make it 10-minute break. Now it is 1:35. I will see you at 1:45. And we will go ahead with the PowerShell. Okay, shall we start? Before starting, I want to know if is there any question? I think people are still not here. Okay. um, Speaking of PowerShell, um, you have definitely seen command command line or CM by typing CMD in Windows. From the old days, this was basically the communication uh, available command line interface for communication of the user with the operating system. And this was there until recently, like a couple of years ago. It was not sufficient anymore. People were not using this anymore. And from another side, Linux had this wonderful command line that people prefer to use. So Microsoft has started developing another interface, a command line interface called PowerShell. This PowerShell is cross-platform. It means it is not dependent on any. It's actually very powerful in this case. It's not just it can run on Intel 8086 series, 86 series basically CPUs, or any other architecture like ARM. It's fine. Everything is fine. It can run on any of these, and no matter what operating system you're using, it can run on those. Um it gives a lot of administrative capabilities to us. There are two ways. After knowing this, we will see how to open and use this. But it's basically similar to all other scripting languages and all other terminals. It is an interpreter that gets a command, interprets this, and returns the data. But one difference makes it a little bit more user friendly compared to other CLIs, which is that in PowerShell we have these CMDLETs are pronounced commandlets. Commandlets are basically piece of commands that come in the face of an object. It's a verb and then a noun, and that verb is the thing that you want the operating system to do for you, uh, and that noun is now the target or the thing that you want that action to be done on. For example, get help. It's a command. We didn't have this command before in like Linux terminals or things like that. This is the command or the verb dash noun. So get help opens up the explanation for the kind of help that you can get, and again from there you can, um, if you're looking for a specific command or a specific task to do, then you can type get help on that command, for example, like this get command, and then the name, and this name is optional. In brackets it's optional. It can be a name of, like, it can be get help and then get help file storage, or a name of a file or something, or a whatever you think. So this is the syntax. Basically this is very humanly syntax. So you give the command and then specify what part you want to be affected by that command. Um, Now, if you want to see a tutorial, there is a link to LinkedIn Learning. You will see a course if you want to learn more on PowerShell. We will see some very basic things in the next few slides here, um, and we will see how to open this and how to run this. There are two ways for running this. Let me uh, okay, very good. I want to show you on my second screen. Okay, imagine you have a file explorer here. You have a file explorer and you want to now activate PowerShell, and you want that PowerShell to go to this directory. What you do is you can simply go here, to file, and you see there is in the file explorer on the top left, you see there is this option for PowerShell, and you can always use Alt F and then R shortcuts, or just using mouse. It will lead you to the same place. Now, when I do that, it opens this window for me. This is a beautiful blue window. And now, if you compare the Active Directory here, it is the same directory that I opened. Now, this is how you open that. Another way of doing that is just by typing PowerShell in the search area. if you type PowerShell in the search area, that will open up PowerShell, and the Active Directory will be your. Show. I think I will have to mute you. Uh, So this can, when you open this PowerShell from the when you search, when you type in the search area PowerShell, it opens up the PowerShell, and the Active Directory is your root directory. If it is your C directory or D whatever, or if you're whatever, it's just a root directory. So now let's see what else we can do with this. Uh, Here, maybe I can, because I want to show the slide as well as PowerShell, so maybe I can minimize PowerShell a little bit. Okay, and as you might have noticed, you can open uh, multiple PowerShells at the same time. It's also true with the terminal, right? You can have as many terminals as you want at the same time. Uh, I think we played with this so many times. Now, I want to see if it accepts any command. Get, and yeah, it accepts. So one important thing to know for all these terminals when you're working is, if you don't want to continue typing the command, there is a good chance that by pushing tab key on your keyboard, when you push tab key on your keyboard, there is a good chance that this the PowerShell or the terminal, whatever you're using, let's say PowerShell here, will autocomplete that and will have an intelligent guess of what you're looking for if you have enough information. So here I just type get dash chill and then press tab, and the autocomplete found what I was looking for. And it I now we see this get children. Get children basically is equal to ls, or ls-r in terminal, where you want to see all the subfolders and files that are in that directory. So here there is a list of folders and directories, folders and files that I have here. For instance, here I have three stuff, and this mode, basically, if we go to the next slide, we will see what these things are. So D is directory. It means this one is a directory I have, and there is no length for that. Length is only shown for the file. So this is a PowerPoint file, and this is a zip file. It shows the length. Here you see the name, but since this is a folder, and how do I know that? From this D in the mode, you see D here. This D is directory. So this is a directory, and all of them are archived files. That means they are saved. Archived means they are saved. They are existing files there, and it shows the last write time as well. So information about those. Now, how can I navigate through these and find what I want? Basically, it is the next slide. So first of all, up and down arrow uh, go through the history of the commands that you have typed and you have used. So these are the commands that I have used in the past. So when you are right now I'm clicking up arrow and down arrow. and it goes one by one to the to the commands that I have in my history of commands. Then for finding these, now I want to find find all the files. Imagine I want to find all the files that end in zip, for instance. Here what I do is type star dot zip and then press tab. It lists, when I do this, it lists all the files with the extension of zip for me, and then I can choose and I can open them. For example, if it is just this, if I press enter, it will open the file. It opened this file in my first screen, so it just opened this zip folder for me, as if I'm double clicking on this. So this way you can very easily find files, manage files, and do that. And this tab key becomes very handy when it comes to uh, PowerShell or terminal, like in Linux or Mac. It comes very handy. Now let's see what happens if I press get, and then we said this is the syntax. Now I'm putting the command get and then dash and get what? Get help. And then it shows me all the possible things that I can do with this. It first shows up here. So it started here. For instance, topic, short description, long description, and the options that I have uh, with I can update this help. I can get help on other topics. To get help online, for instance, do this, and other commandlets that it tells you don't know what commandlet to do, to type, to do what. So it is giving you a list of a headline of those commandlets that you can type and you can get your job done. This is, for instance, in the help you can use, and other things. uh, the PowerShell basically is equivalent to File Explorer when it comes to showing the files. You can also use this PowerShell to open a file explorer. So you just say start if I can type, start explorer, start explorer. What happened? Start explorer. Let's start for God's sake. Explorer. Start explorer. It opened again in here. Yeah, in this, hopefully in the screen too. So you see it opened it for me. It opened the file explorer anywhere if you want to do this. Also you can give address. So let's go to downloads, and here now I'm gonna copy this, copy this. By the way, it is, let's say like C. I wanna select a random start explorer, C OP244, for example. So it opens that directory for me. It opens OP244 in C. So this is how you can use this equivalently as the Explorer. Or if you want to navigate through the files you have there, uh, if you want to navigate through the files, first here, let's say get child item and see I have these. Now if I do this and then press tab, okay, sorry, do this and then press tab, it shows me all the files. It is, you see, it is navigating through these files. And for this one, for pptx for instance, because this is now open, it is showing a reference to my file. You see this thingy here, it is a reference, but by clicking on tab I'm able uh, to navigate through this different files, and you can copy and paste the uh, directory path directly to the PowerShell to open it there, and so many other things. So by now, I hope you have a good idea of the things you can do with PowerShell. Go ahead and watch that YouTube, that LinkedIn Learning course. It comes handy, especially for programmers. Um, and activity is this week's activity is about PowerShell. You will go a little bit deeper into PowerShell. The first part, and the second part is about time management. So you will talk about the techniques, the things that you do for time management. We finished a little bit early today, which is good, which leaves us some time to answer questions. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask. Um, we have 10 people here, so please let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, we can end our session for today. Any questions, one? Any questions, two? Any questions, two and a half? Any question, three? Okay, in this case, uh, again, this week you will have activity and quiz, same time, same deadline. Sunday night for the activity, and Monday from Sunday 1 p.m. to Monday 1 p.m. for the quiz. Take care and have a great weekend.